Marvel Comics' Amazing Spider-Man has been less than amazing since pretty much issue number 1 from Zeb Wells. There were some highlights in there. I particularly liked the Tombstone story arc in the beginning. Probably the best John Romita Jr. art we've seen in quite some time. But the series has just been derailed by events and tie-ins and all kinds of stupid stuff. We're at issue number 20 of Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man run. We don't even know what Peter Parker did. We don't even know why MJ left him and why the two won't speak. And apparently, issue number 20 is supposed to be like the final chapter in the Peter Parker MJ romance. And I don't know, it just feels like Marvel Comics hate Peter Parker and Spider-Man fans. I know Zeb Wells technically did not write this issue. It's actually Joe Kelly with the Dodsons on art. But somehow this is an epic new low in Zeb Wells' very underwhelming Amazing Spider-Man run. There's not one redeeming quality about this comic book. There's nothing nice I can say about it. It pretty much fails across the board. Everything about this comic book pretty much sucks. And you know, I feel bad for Joe Kelly. He's a good writer. He's got a pretty decent sense of humor. It does not come through in this comic book. And I feel way worse for the Dodsons. They're a really good artist team, and you do not get that here at all. It absolutely looks like crap. Amazing Spider-Man should have just taken a break for these 2 issues, and they never should have released this story. It's that bad. Let's get into all the details on this epic new low for Amazing Spider-Man. Let's start off with the thing everyone's going to be talking about. Peter Parker talking about his relationship with MJ to Felicia. He says, "I feel like what you want me to say is the exact opposite of what I should say. Only one way to find out. Mary Jane has been part of my life for a long time. More than a part, but she's more like a sister." What kind of fucking Luke Skywalker shit is that? Everyone knows that Peter Parker and MJ have been a couple for a long time. They have engaged in coitus multiple times. Why is he talking about this woman? Oh, she's like a sister to me. And I understand, I believe Joe Kelly is trying to be funny there, but it's just such a weird line, and it really takes you out of it. And you're supposed to be feeling this moment because I believe this particular moment in this comic book is the only thing that really matters to what happens. Everything before that just wasn't important. But this is going to be important to Zeb Wells' run. And she's like my sister. It's like, dude, like she sucked your dick. You can't be talking about this woman like that. That is really sick. But I'm not done. There's worse stuff to come. She says, nope. He says, a best friend. Better, bud. I love her. I always have, and part of me always will. But I think that love has changed, you know? Like capital L to lowercase, or the other way around, whichever makes sense. And then Felicia makes out with him. Was that so hard? The hardest. That's because you weren't telling me the truth. You were telling yourself. Do you want to see if the hot tub is still functional? The truth? The only currency I accept, all caps, YES. It's like nobody wants this. Nobody wants this future for Peter Parker. No one wants this future for Spider-Man. No one wants this future for MJ, and they've gone down the same path so many times. You're just wasting time at this point just to infuriate people, to get people talking about how bad this comic book sucks. You know, I feel bad for Joe Kelly that he's the one that had to execute it. He wouldn't have done this. This isn't his story. He was forced to put this in there because it's part of Zeb Wells' overarching narrative and makes it a part of his run or whatever. And it's just off-putting. It sucks. No one likes it. And it's a reason to not read the comic book. As if the stories before weren't reason enough. You're never going to see Peter Parker and MJ patch things up. You're never going to see them get married. You're never going to get to see Peter Parker grow up and become a man. You know, and have kids and be a great dad and all that stuff. Like, that felt like it was on the precipice of happening. It felt like that was the future of Spider-Man before one more day. And every single time it feels like they're this close. They're finally going to get over the hump. They're going to fix the past mistakes and let Peter Parker grow as a character. They not only kick the character in the nuts, but they kick the fans in the nuts too for being dumb enough and complicit enough to follow along and believe that something else was going to happen. Of course they were going to fuck this up. Of course he was going to talk about MJ being a friend, even though they fucked 1,000 times. It's just weird. It's off-putting, and it really makes me hate the fucking series. It makes me hate Marvel Comics. You know, as part of that, like, why am I even wearing this shirt? That's such a fucking stupid brand. These guys can never get their heads out of their asses. And I'm sorry if I'm using too much colorful language. This stuff gets really frustrating after a while. It's like, why are you still doing that? In the comic book, like I said, there's nothing redeeming about it. You would think the Dodsons on art would be good. At least it's going to look good. No, the entire thing looks like crap. It looks like they gave Terry and Rachel Dotson about 15 minutes a page to illustrate this. There's almost no detail on any page. There's none of that slick line work that you always see with those great inks that Rachel lays on top of Terry's inks that make the art so dynamic and so appealing to the eye. It's like, it's all wrong. It doesn't look like Dotson art whatsoever. And don't get me started on the colors. Yes, the Dotsons typically use more pastels, but there's so many bad pastels in this comic book. It just looks like a really bad third grade classroom during Valentine's Day. Nothing pops, nothing's vibrant, nothing is exciting about the visuals in this comic book. You know what? I feel bad that their name is on this comic book. They probably don't deserve that. Joe Kelly doesn't deserve this. I don't think for a second that this is his story. I think this is an editor's story that they paid him to finish and put his name on. Unfortunately, it's just so bad. It wasn't even worth the $30 that they paid him to do it. And the humor in this thing is just cringe-inducing through the entire comic book. Spider-Man is swinging around. Dude, I'm sorry, but I think I peed a little. Happens all the time, Kareem. Tony Stark sports adult diapers under the Iron Ones. Our secret. What's our plan? This isn't a game anymore. Men, take the men. Girls, take the girls. Kill them all. I hate him. Hate him so much. Focus on disabling the gear. Come on, ladies. This is just the sort of fan service the patriarchy wants. So give up because of feminism and stuff. What does that even mean? I don't even get the joke at that point. I'm just rolling my eyes because it reads so poorly. Joe Kelly is actually kind of funny. He's done good stuff with Spider-Man. How the hell did this happen? What happened to Felicia Hardy? She's not this bad of a character. And then when we get to the end, Spider-Man defeats the Silicon Six because everything has to be a derivative of something that already exists in Marvel Comics. How heroic is this? That's a question I want to ask you. He's talking to them. You trafficked in illegal and highly dangerous weapons, resulting in the death of your beloved CEO. That was her, says you. I'm a freaking Avenger. No one goes to jail if I tell the authorities the real Doc Ock killed Michael. All for the low price of 25% of your company. We'll keep it simple. Do you Venmo? Another really funny joke that I'm certain Joe Kelly didn't actually write, but Spider-Man defeats the Silicon Six, and instead of sending him to jail because he thinks that they've murdered somebody, he's going to extort them for 25% of their company. This is supposed to be the flagship hero of all of Marvel Comics, the number 2 selling hero in all of comic books, period. How does this stuff even make it into the comic book? No wonder people like Doug Ernst, who've been reading Spider-Man their entire lives, just fucking checked out. Who would actually pay for this crap? This comic is only $4, but it's $3.99 too expensive. That's how bad the art and the dialogue and the entire trash story is. And I imagine some of you are going to say, but Wes, there's 14 pages of action in this comic book. I thought you like action. I do like action. I think action is great. That's why I like superhero comic books. But what was the action about? What were they fighting for? It's just 14 pages of absolute garbage nothing, and it just goes on forever and ever and ever. I don't care about any of these characters. I don't care about Spider-Man when he's like this. I certainly don't care about Felicia Hardy when she's like this. I never cared about the Silicon Six, so there's no stakes whatsoever. I'm just going through the motions reading a comic book with no investment whatsoever. 14 pages of action completely wasted because it never meant anything to anything. That this was never going anywhere. I defy most people to even tell me why they were fighting to begin with. And that's kind of the big problem with Amazing Spider-Man right now. I know Zeb Wells didn't write this particular issue, but it clearly falls into the narrative of what he's trying to do here for 20 issues. You're a Spider-Man fan. I'm a Spider-Man fan. What is Zeb Wells trying to do here with his Amazing Spider-Man run? What's the importance of the run? What story is he telling? What's he trying to say about Peter Parker? Because at this point, I have no idea. And he's had 20 issues to flesh it out. It should mean something by now. It's just an endless mystery box of nothingness that he might get to and answer after he introduces another mystery box, I guess. What do we have to suffer through 35 issues before he gets to the point of whatever story he's actually trying to tell here? There was a good beginning to this with Tombstone. That was interesting. There's a lot of good action there. I kind of like the fights and everything. But at this point, something bigger should have happened. What an enormous waste of 20 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. What an enormous waste of an opportunity by Zeb Wells to get the flagship series at Marvel Comics, A spot I guarantee you he never thought he would get in his lifetime as a comic book writer. I'm sure he wanted that spot, but I'm sure he noticed that the sales were never there. The popularity wasn't there. There's no name recognition for Zeb Wells. He's on the flagship book, and this is what he's got to give. Absolutely nothing. And it started out just as bad. Yeah, Tombstone was fun, but this first issue absolutely blew. I talked about it in full and why it was so frustrating. And guess what? All the bullshit in here still hasn't been answered to this day, 20 issues in. Here's a little reminder. Definitely check this video out. There's also a link in the video description.